Hey, this is Passy from Passy's World of ICT, the guy with the white hat. And today we got the third lesson, I think it's the third one in our current series on VBNet Fun and Games Programming. So if this is the first video you've ever watched, we've got a whole lot of other ones on our YouTube channel. So be sure to just subscribe so you can see them all. All right, so the talking alarm clock. In this fun project, we're going to make a talking alarm clock, and probably the best way is to show you the talking alarm clock. So here it is. Maybe we need it on a better background, actually. Let's just get a blank document to try and sit it against. Here it is here. Okay, that's better. You can see it a whole lot better now. So anyway, it's ticking away. That's the current time, which it is right now. Now we're going to go in here and set the alarm. So we need to go here and use our little arrow things there, and 2:09, let's see, let's come back in time here. We want to get sort of around maybe 15 and set the alarm quickly.
Up. Get up, it is time to get ready and go right now, Mr. Pazzi.
All right, so hopefully you could hear that going, and if you're a school teacher doing this, it's going to drive you absolutely crazy when the kids have got all their talkie alarm clocks going off in class. All right, so in this lesson we're going to build on the work we've done in previous lessons. So previously we made the desktop clock so we can learn about the timer and stuff and get like that clock time on the screen. And we're going to learn how to use VBNet's speech module. That's what was talking to us with the wake up message which we heard when the alarm went off. Okay, so that's going to be something new that we learn. And then later on, we'll replace the speaking voice just with a sample WAV file in the challenge task. We'll show you that later on and what we mean there. And we're going to continue to learn how to design and structure programs, how to do incremental development and testing. And we're also even going to introduce Boolean variables, like having a on-off kind of switch happening in the program as well, because that's something we're going to need. So there's a lot of really good learning in this, which is going to help you later on in proper games programming. So people are sort of saying, and I've had a couple of emails already from people, thanks for the nice emails people have been writing. It's really good, saying they've gotten value out of this, especially teachers that are using this work with their classes. But I got a couple saying, well, when are the games starting? When are the games starting? Stupid other projects you're doing. Well, the thing is, we've got to just learn the basics. You're just like at trade school, you're learning how to use an electric drill and how to use a circular saw. We're not going to actually be cutting up wood and building anything yet for a while, okay? So anyway, let's keep moving along here. Now, I'm a slow talker, so it's best that you change the video speed. Like on the YouTube player, there's a tools cog, and you can go to the cog and just click on speed and look, make the play speed 1.5 or 1.75, and the video will flow a lot better. All right, so the first thing we need to do is design the form. And the things we're going to have is up in the corner here, you can see this tiny little clock, this clock icon. Now we learned how to do that in the previous lesson on the desktop clock. So you need to have done the previous lessons in order before you attempt the next one. Now, if you're struggling with that, wondering, well, what are the previous ones I'm supposed to have done? What am I supposed to have done? Go to the Passy's World of ICT website, okay, passyworldofict.com, and click on the VB Games here in the menu. And it takes you through and shows you what you need to do. Obviously, the first thing you need to do is download Visual Studio Community, but you're supposed to do that's just a video which shows a few of the less things we're going to do in the course. But this one here, you need to do VBNet jumping button program lesson first. If you're a beginner programmer, which we're assuming you are, then you do the desktop clock where you learn about time and date and how to put icons on. And now you're up to the talking alarm clock, which is the one we're doing right now. Okay, and you can click on each of these lessons and things, and we will talk about that later on in the video. But now let's get back to what we were doing. All right, so that's the form. So click anywhere in this colored area on the form, and we made our back color indigo here, which is a bit more interesting than the sort of dull gray default one that happens when you start a new Visual Studio project. And if you do not know how to start a Windows.NET Forms project, again, you need to go back to the jumping button lesson to learn that. And the text you put in there for the text property is just talking alarm clock, and that'll make this writing come up here that says talking alarm clock. All right, now these labels down the side, they're just kind of like little headings on your page. We're not going to use them in the program at all, so they don't need special names. You can just leave this, the default name VBNet gives it, which will be either label 1, label 2, or whatever. The font size is 26, and the font color we're using is white, and in the text, you need to put current time so that that'll fit there in the text property. The next one is just the same thing, but it'll be label 2 or label 3. And the text property of that one has alarm time and then colon. All right, so remember you can just Control C this one after you've made it and Control V, and then you don't have to worry. These will all be the same color and fonts, and all you do is change the text properties. And the third one will just be label 3 or 4, whatever VBNet calls it. Font size 26, color white, alarm message. Okay, so they're just labels, just showing what's what on the form. This one's more important. This one needs to have a special name. So this one label is called LBL status. All right, so it's a label that you drag out of the toolbox, but make sure the name up in the name property is LBL status, because we're going to refer to that in the program and change it. This one as well is going to get changed by the program. It needs a special name. That's where the current time goes. So that's LBL CURR time, current time, LBL CURR time. Make sure it's spelt exactly the same as that with the uppercase and lowercase letters. This one here is a date time picker. That's a new one which you haven't used before, and that's the one you saw me using when I was setting the alarm. And we're going to have sort of hours, minutes, seconds in there, and you can flick between AM and PM. All right, and that needs to be, so that's a date time picker is the toolbox item. It's called DTP alarm time, font size 20 point. The format, you need to set the format to time, otherwise it might put a date in there or something different. And to get these little arrow scrollers that I was using, you need to use show up, down, true, and that'll give you the little scrollers, okay? So that's a new item we're learning. And here's another new item we're learning. This is called a rich text box. So it's a rich text box because it's enriched, and you can type multiple lines in there, okay? You can actually get a single normal text box and set, I think, multi-line to true and do the same thing. But usually if you want several lines and a little editor in here that people can type into, it's a rich text box that you use. So that's another new item we're using. Our good old friend, the button, and this one needs to be called BTN set alarm, okay? And font size 16 for color red. All right, so they're all the items you need on the form. You might want to just pause the video now and get that all set up. And if you need the clock icon, it is part of the downloads for this lesson. So have a look in the video link, and there are the downloads you can get for the lesson, and that's one of them. All right, now the timer object, as well as putting those objects on the form, we need the timer so that we can have a clock ticking at the top. So that is in the toolbox under timer, and as we discussed in the previous lesson, when you drag that out and put it on your form, it doesn't appear there like a label, it actually jumps down and goes underneath the form, all right? So make sure when you're changing the time, you need to look underneath the form, you single click on that, and then we need certain properties, okay? So that goes down underneath the form, make sure you remember that. And there was this thing you had to get double arrows here and slide this so you can see it, because sometimes you can't see it. Was all explained in the desktop clock lesson. That's why you need to do the lessons in sequence. So we're going to name this one timer clock. So make sure you type that in for the name, because we're going to be using that in the program. We're just setting enabled there, leaving it set to false, that it's not enabled at the moment, it's not switched on. And the interval is 1000, which will give us about 1 second ticks of the clock, which is what we want for our particular program we are doing here. All right, now what are going to be the build steps of making this project? Because as you saw, we have to be able to display the current time. We have to be able to pick and click and use the up and down arrows to set when we want the alarm to go off. We need to put a message in for what we want the computer to say to us when the alarm goes off. And we're also going to have this status down here that when you click set alarm, it's going to tell us the alarm is turned on at the moment, and this will change color to red. Okay, and then we need to test all those things. So we're not going to try and make this thing all at once and test it, because then if there's problems, it could be any of these things we've done, and it's a lot harder to work on. So it's best to build things up in steps, and these are the steps we're going to use. So we're just going to get the current time displayed on the screen first. So we'll just get that displayed up the top. We'll get everything on the form and build the form. You always do that first. But in terms of the processing and coding, we'll just get this current time getting displayed on the top of the screen and make sure that is working properly. Then we'll just test that you can pick and click in your hours, minutes, second here for the alarm time. Use the up and down arrows and flick and change them. And we'll also test at the same time that you can type different messages into the message box and use backspace and edit what is ever there. So we'll get all that working. Then we'll be able to go to the next thing, make the set alarm button. So when this button gets clicked, for set alarm. Where's my mouse gone? Here. When the button gets clicked for set alarm, we'll make sure this changes from status alarm not set in yellow writing into status alarm is set in red writing, so people know the alarm is turned on at the moment and not to go messing with it and changing it at the moment. All right, now on each tick of the clock, this is the main processing for working out where the alarm's going off. Now, if we were just looking at this ourselves, okay, the current time versus the alarm time. So the alarm time's staying all the same. The current time's ticking over second by second. With every tick that it ticks over, we need to check, hey, is it time for the alarm to go off yet? No. Another tick, is it time yet? Now, we're kind of smarter than that. We can see it's not till 11 a.m. and we know, oh, we don't have to check this for quite a while. It's not going to go off for about, what is that, 30 minutes, a bit over 30 minutes. But remember, the computer is dumb and blind, so it needs processing code. It doesn't have eyes, it doesn't have a brain. It only does what we tell it to do in the programming steps. So it can't see these and has no idea how far ahead the alarm is from the current time. So it just needs to be dumb and check every second. Oh, is it time for it to go off yet? Is it time to go off? Is it time to go? Oh, it's time to make it go off, and then it'll do the programming code which will make it speak this message, all right? So we need to get that code working. That'll be the longest bit of code. And when it's time for the alarm to go off, we need to fire up the speech processor to read out that message to us. And then we just do a final check to make sure that everything is working a-okay for the whole little application we've got there. All right, so they're the steps we're going to be going through. And so remember that, think about it as we're doing it, this whole idea of incremental development. Now, for a small project like this, you think, oh, this is ridiculous. We have to do all these steps and stop and test everything. But look, in bigger projects, this approach will really pay dividends, all right? So the program code we're going to start off with. The first step is just getting that current device time. So up the top here at the moment on our form, it just has the time written into our text for that label that we set up there. So click anywhere on the form's colored background here. So click in this blue area we've got on ours. So double click there, and what that's going to do is open up the code editor, and it will open it up, and VBNet will write this code for you. That's code that when that form first loads up and comes onto the screen, in here you can put what things you want to happen as kind of the starting up sort of thing. A bit like when you start up your car, the air conditioning unit automatically comes on, the navigation system fires up, the Bluetooth connects to your phone. That's kind of like your car start load process. And this is the load process for when the form or the program starts up. Now we're going to need this code in here. So you carefully type in this line of code here, timer clock. That was the name of our timer, remember? We called it timer clock. And we have dot enabled equals true. So it's like we're turning the clock on, okay? We haven't started the clock ticking yet. All right, it's a bit like a stopwatch, electric stopwatch. You've kind of turned it on, but you haven't pressed the start button because the gun hasn't gone off to start the sprinting or swimming race or whatever yet. But we've turned it on. So timer clock dot enable true, you need to very carefully type that in. Now the next step is underneath your form, see up in the right hand corner here, you've got the timer clock. So you need to double click that timer clock, and we need some code on that. So this is for every tick of the clock. So we have VBNet writing this for us. So when we double click the timer clock on the form, it'll write this code for us. And we don't try and write this code ourselves, right? Always leave it to VBNet because it's too hard to get it exactly right with the names and the spacing and all the commas if you try and do it yourself. As my students have proved to me many times over, even though I've told them many times over, don't write that code yourselves, they still try doing it, and every time it messes up. And I say, did you double click on the form to generate that code? And they go, oh no, sir, it's pretty easy. I thought I'd write it myself. And yeah, it doesn't work that way anyway. Now, in here, we need some code that's going to get the current time of day. Okay, so time of day here, it gets the system time off our computer, and it's going to put it in to that label up there. And that way it'll display for every tick of the clock. It's going to go and check what the current time is on our Windows device and put that current time up the top. And you might be thinking, well, that's every second it's doing this processing. But remember, the processing is super fast. We're talking fractions and fractions of seconds here for it to happen. And you've got a big processor in your device, so it's not going to slow things down by it doing all this checking and things. All right, so that's going to get the clock started, and we're going to get the current time continually put in there. So it'll just look like it's a clock ticking over second by second as we saw when we ran the program. All right, so we need to test that. We've just done that little bit of programming and we need to test that it's all working. All right, so up the top of your program, your Visual Studio environment here, you'll have that start button with the green arrow. Double click that start button and what should happen is it should start up and you should see in here that the current time, okay, is getting displayed and that it's ticking over like we saw when we showed you the example one at the start. All right, so you need to check that out. So the current time's correctly formatted and displayed like it is afternoon, so it's showing PM, all those sorts of things, and it keeps ticking over continuously. And if that's happened, we can go tick, we've done that first step and that's all working and we don't have to worry about that anymore because we know it's working. All right, now we need the input objects where we're picking the time. Okay, how that date time picker works is that when you drag it out and put it on your form, you've got your show up down to get your scrolling arrows, you've set it to format equals time and it'll show hours, minutes, seconds and AM and PM. Now these are little things actually on there that you can click into. Okay, so if you click into the minutes here, when you hit the scroll bars, it'll change the minutes. If you want to change the hours, you've got to first click on the hours, then you can use the scroll bars to change them. So you need to check that all that's working. You can also directly click and type in here as well. So if I wanted to just put 11 in and not bother scrolling to it, I think you can click in there and just type 11 in and that 2 for the hours would change to 11. All right, so, and check that when you click on this one that you can flick between AM and PM. All right, so you need to make sure all that thing's working because that's very important that we're able to set the alarm time. Then just check the message. So check that you can kind of backspace in here. You can type different things in. You can correct your typing and all of that into the rich text box. And someone's probably thinking, oh, what if we type a really long thing in there so the alarm talks forever? Oh, because that'll wake them up. I think that's okay. What happens is when you get down here, you'll just start getting some a big scroll bar kind of line at the side here, so you'll be able to scroll through the rich text box. That's part of the functionality which is delivered with the rich text box tool. So that'll be okay. And some of our students here just type ridiculously long messages or just copy and paste something off the internet and put it in there for the wake up message. You can do that. All right, now the next thing to do is we need to remember that set alarm button at the bottom, how we made it change to red to tell people, oh, don't go messing with the alarm time because someone's got it set at the moment. So double click on that set alarm button and what will happen is VB will write that button click code. So we've seen this in our last 2 lessons we did, I think, but whenever you click a button on the form, it sets up an event for something to happen when the button is clicked. So this object-oriented VBNet type programming is all about events, and an event happens and then there's some sort of consequence or actions that follow on from that, okay? So what happens? You speed with your car through an intersection that has a speeding camera, and that's the event that you are speeding, and the action is that the camera will be triggered to take a photo of your car, and then you'll get one of those big nasty fines sent in the mail. Ooh, ouch. I don't get them because I set cruise control and I drive smart using technology. And I suggest you guys that are getting your licenses later on, you do that as well. But anyway, I'm talking way too much. Okay, so when you click it, it does that code. Don't try and write it yourself. Now in here, we need to have that the status of that label next to the button, we want the message. So the button can be clicked and something else on the form can be changed as a result. So it doesn't have to be the button that changes. So yeah, some people get confused with that. So this, the fore color or the font color, remember it has that silly fore color. You do color.red, which will change it to a red color. And this text in there, we now want it to say status alarm is set rather than saying status alarm not set. All right, so we put those 2 lines of code in there active. This stuff in green is called internal documentation, and you have to do this, especially in VCE subjects in Melbourne, Australia, because if you don't put that internal documentation in to explain in plain English what different sections of codes are doing, you'll be marked down severely on your project. So we're trying to get you into good habits now, and it's just good for you, when you come back and look at a program later on, you can look at sections and revisit them easily. It's just like a little document, internal documentation. So carefully type that in, as well as these green internal documentation comments, which start with a single quote mark, okay? So you don't have to write exactly what I did, but it has to have some sort of plain English thing in there. So when you put the single quote mark, this will turn green, and the program ignores that and doesn't try and do it as an instruction or anything like that. It just sits there as commentary. And all programming languages have that, and all professional programmers do that. So you need to start doing the same. All right, so now we need to test that. We just did some code, so let's do the testing. So it's code a little bit, test a little bit, code a little bit, test a little bit, all right? So just click on the green start button, run your program, click the set alarm. Now it'll start off that it's yellow, status alarm is not set. So when we click this from that coding we just did, we're expecting that that will turn red and have a different message saying the alarm is set, okay? So make sure that that is working. When you click that button, the yellow changes to red and so does the text. And then that's all done and that's all good. All right, now we're on to having the alarm go off. Now, before you try and write the VBNet code, because this is the most complicated section of this little program, we need to think, just in plain English, think about now what has to happen in this program for that alarm to go off. So we write some plain English pseudocode, it's called. And this is part of your design. And if you're continuing on in Melbourne, Australia, VCE, software development, VC, applied computing, you will have to write pseudocode. So we're just sort of getting that sorted a little bit in this course, but not going into it in detail like we do in our other playlist all about application programming. But anyway, pseudocode. So we were talking about this. So for each second that clock ticks onto, because remember the computer's got no idea about time and how far apart the alarm and the real time is. It's just kind of dumb and blind and we're telling it what to do. For each second the clock ticks onto, we got to check, does that alarm time equal the current time on the clock? And then it ticks again. Does that alarm clock, has it got up to that? Yeah, it's getting closer, but you know, is it ready yet to go off? So that is done for each second the clock ticks. And if they're both equal when you check them, then we need to make that alarm message get spoken out loud using that voice processor in VBNet. Now, we also have here that after we've done that check, it's time to check the next second of the clock. So this is called a loop because we just keep continually doing this over and over and over. So we check, does the alarm time equal the current time on the clock? If it does, bang, make the alarm go off. Oh, nope, nothing happened then. Okay, check again. Is the alarm time the current time on the clock? And if it isn't, well, check again. It's done another tick. Is it the current time on the clock? Are they both equal? Because if they're both equal, you've got to make the alarm message go off. So this is called a repeating for next loop, okay? So for each something that's happening, you need to do stuff and then you need to keep repeating that again over and over and over. Right, so the above logic is a repeating for next loop. Now, VBNet, through the tick event on the timer clock, creates the for next for us. So some programs, this is getting ahead of where we are now, but some programs you will actually have to write a for statement, and at the bottom of your loop you'll have to have a next statement. But in this program we don't actually have to code in the for next because we've got that little clock with its tick event doing that for us. So we can have the event trigger what needs to happen in here. So what we do is we say, okay, every time the clock ticks through the tick event, we're just going to check these two things in here, all right? So we don't have to actually have for and next in our program code, but other programs that we write, we will have to do that, but that's getting way into the future and getting a little bit complicated. Just if you can get the idea of this continual checking, we need to continually check, is it time for the alarm to go off? Is it time to go for the alarm to go off? A bit like kids waiting for Christmas. How many days till Christmas? How many more times? How many sleeps till Santa comes? All that sort of thing, you know, over and over and over till it drives their parents crazy. All right, back to this. Now we're ready to write the code that checks each tick of the clock and if it's time for it to go off yet. Okay, so if you're on your form, remember you use view, then code to get into the VBNet code editor. So we're not actually double clicking anything on the form in this case, we're just doing view code to get into our code. And where we've already got that stuff for the timer tick event, we're gonna make some blank lines where we're gonna put in this code, which we just talked about with the pseudocode, that over and over checking needs to go in here. And if it is time to go off, we need to make the computer talk. All right, now we're gonna need about 10 lines to do that. So just press the Enter key 10 times to make this big amount of space in the existing timer tick subroutine that we've got, all right? And then here's what's gonna go in those spaces that we've made. So you carefully type in these comments and lines of code. So what are they? So we're saying if the time of day, all right, that's this gold one up the top here, if that equals the alarm time, then we can set up our speech synthesizer and we can actually make the computer speak whatever is in this rich text box, okay? So for every tick of the clock, every time this gold one up the top of the form here ticks over, we're going to be checking, are those equal? And this was a bit slow on the print screen. They were exactly the same, okay? And it has, and the clock did go off, all right? But when they are exactly the same, what'll happen is, okay, whoa, we need to do something. So if the time of day equals the alarm clock time that we set, you need to do this dim voice is create an object SAPI SP voice, so synthesized processed voice or something, I think it stands for. But this is the code which will bring an object into your program, which is a little voice synthesizer. And the default one is for that female voice that we heard. Now, people are going to say, how can we have lots of other different voices? What if we want to have a guy to talk? Yeah, well, I did some Googling on this and it doesn't seem particularly easy to change. There are voices in your Windows operating system that come for the narrator. And I think there's David is the man and someone who sounds like Siri, but it isn't Siri for the name, is the woman. And there's another woman as well, Grace or someone. But look, I couldn't find anything where you can change them here in the program. So we're just stuck with the default voice. If someone knows how to do that, please email passyworld@hotmail.com and tell me. But I checked Stack Overflow, did some Googling, couldn't find anything on it and didn't spend any more time after about 20 minutes of frustration not finding anything. I gave up. And here's where you do the voice.speak. So the voice.speak command in Visual Basic Net, VBNet, we take RTB alarm message.text, which is the contents of this rich text box here, because it's called RTB alarm message, and .text will grab the text out of there. So it's going to grab all that text and the speech synthesizer is going to read it out, okay? Now, after that's read out, we're finished with setting off the alarm. So something else we need to do, which you may not think of, and maybe you'll do some testing and notice, I think there's something else I have to do there, but we'll just tell you for today. You need to reset that text color and status back to not set. So we've done our alarming, we've spoken the alarm, and so down the bottom here, that needs to go back to the yellow writing and say status alarm is not set, okay? Which means the alarm's gone off, so we don't need to have it set anymore. So we need to also do that as part of this processing. That's why we needed the whole 10 lines, because we've been a good boy, and we've put also here the comments so that people can understand exactly what's happening, the internal documentation there in green. That starts with the single quote. So let's move along. So testing. So what we're doing is it's 3:38:54. We're going to set the alarm for 3:39:00, which means it'll only take 6 seconds of that clock ticking until it should notice that they're both the same and it should go off. So what happens is, again, I was slow on the print screening, all right, but they were the same and they did go off and this did get read out okay. And you can see this red status alarm is set has now been set back to status alarm is not set in yellow, ready for someone to set another alarm time and click set alarm. All right, so make sure yours is working like that you can actually, set an alarm time, click set alarm, wait for it, and then it will go off and read out the message. Okay, so that looks good. That's like pretty much finished and pretty much working. But however, and there's always a however, if you've watched our other videos, there's always a however. However, if you did some careful and thorough testing, that button that we've got to set the alarm is kind of a bit of an empty fake button at the moment because it doesn't really turn the alarm on and off setting wise, okay? So the set alarm button doesn't actually set it on and off. Now we need to explain this, that you'll notice if you go back and test your program, if you didn't notice this, that you can set a time with the scroller, not even bother clicking set alarm, and when it comes up to that time, bang, the alarm will go off, all right? So we want to actually have it work like a house alarm. So kind of at the moment, so everyone knows about a house alarm, right? You've got an alarm in your house or where you live, and before you go out, you to turn it on so that it is set, and if someone's going to come through the door, it's going to go off. All right, ours is kind of like the alarm isn't set up properly, because what happens is if I go out the front door to say get my sunglasses out of my car, when I come back in, woo, 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 the alarm goes off anyway, right? So it's kind of permanently set on. So what we need to do is have this kind of thing, like you have to go boop, 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 boop to set it, so that it won't go off every time the front door opens. It's only going to go off if you actually deliberately set it, okay? So that's what we need to do. Have this kind of on and off switch so that we can set this switch and say, yes, it is actually on, and when it reaches the time, it will actually go off. Rather than just having it on all the time. So we're going to have this on and off switch. And if you haven't set that switch, it can come around and the two times can match, the current time and the alarm time, but it will not go off because you didn't actually have it switched on to go off. Is that kind of making sense? Just try and think about that house alarm kind of thing, and I think you'll get it. All right, so we need to have this turn the alarm on, activate the alarm, so it's ready to go off into our program. We're going to use a true-false Boolean variable. Now, variables are a whole new thing which we haven't looked at yet, but we will definitely be getting into during this course. And there's a full lesson all about variables in our application programming course. But today, look, it's just a yes-no on-off switch we can use, all right? Same way you turn a light on and off. Okay, so variables, up the very top of the program under public class form 1, we need this special statement, a dim, a dimension statement, which defines the variable. So we put dim, BLN alarm on. So because it's a Boolean yes, no, true, false, on, off switch, we start its name with BLN. That's the naming standard. BLN alarm on, okay, as Boolean. So this is setting up our switch. We're installing a little switch on the wall, if you like. So we define this on-off switch by writing this dimension statement. So that's something brand new we haven't done before. Now what the dimension statement does is it gets VBNet to allocate a memory location, and it calls it BLN alarm on for its name. So VBNet has all these parts of your computer memory, and it can set up all these little compartments, and we can pop things in there and store them and see how they're going and things like this when we get into more complicated programs. So that's just what it's doing. We'll get into this more later on. You'll just have to type that in carefully right up the very top, directly under public class form 1, and get that set up. Okay, now when the form loads, we need to make sure the alarm is turned off, because we don't want the alarm kind of activated unless someone's deliberately clicked that set alarm button and wants it to be activated. Okay, so we don't want our burglar alarm on all the time in our house. We only want it on if someone's actually used the keypad to activate it, all right? So that's what we're doing here. So when the form first loads, we're gonna make sure the alarm is not activated. So what we do is, where we've got that existing form load subroutine, so double click anywhere on your form and it'll go into here, we also add in BL and alarm on equals false, okay, with a comment here. So that's gonna set up that the alarm is not activated yet, okay? So it doesn't matter, the program can be running, the two times can match, the alarm will not go off because we actually haven't activated it. We don't want it to go off any time. So we set that up when the form loads. Okay, now when they click that set alarm button, that's when we want to activate the alarm so that it can go off. All right, so on that button alarm click, so double click on your button, which will take you into this existing subroutine where you wrote that thing about red writing. And in here, you need to put BLN alarm on equals true. Okay, so what that's going to do is when they click that button set alarm, it's actually going to activate the alarm, the same way you've activated and turned on your burglar alarm when you left your house, okay? They've deliberately clicked the button. They want it activated. They want it ready to go off when the time is right. All right, so we need to make sure that alarm only goes if the switch is on. So we don't want it going off automatically all the time, only if they've clicked that set alarm and BLN, alarm on equals true. So what we do is, where we had that checking of the time of day, if the two times are equal, we need to kind of add a further condition onto that, a further thing which has to happen before this can happen. So what we do is we put up here, if BLN alarm on equals true, okay, so if they've actually clicked that button to activate the alarm, then we'll do this checking that if it's the right time, set the alarm off and read the message and then reset the alarm. Okay, and because we've added an if up here for something to happen, you always have to have a matching end if. We spoke about that earlier in our course. So we need an if up the top here and an end if. And when you type those in, I think VBNet will automatically move all these in. Just remember, everything's supposed to go in 4 spaces from the previous thing, so the blocks of code are easy to read. All right, so need to carefully get all that set up. That's the first thing we need to do, but there is another thing as well, because what we want to do is, where we're doing that reset to set it back to the yellow message that the alarm's not set, we also, after the alarm has gone off in here, if the times of day matched and everything, we need to just set the alarm activate switch to off. So we set BLN alarm on equals false, okay, to turn it back off again, and tell them alarm is not set. All right, and that should give us our fully functioning alarm clock. So we're ready to test it. So here, the alarm is not set, and the 2 times ticked over. We set that as the alarm time, right? And this clock ticked up until it got to that exact time. But what happened was the alarm did not go off. So because we hadn't activated it here, all right, these could match, but nothing would happen, which is exactly what we wanted. So that fixed that problem of it going off all the time, even if you hadn't set it. And now what happens here is that we did set the alarm. We click that button, it tells us the alarm is set. And when the 2 times matched here, I wasn't quite quick enough on the print screen by the looks of it, the button has been clicked here to set it, and this message, the wake up message, did get read out. So that is all working. That's now a fully functional alarm, just like your house alarm. So remember, we had to add this extra layer of kind of complication or processing in our program, that you had to have it activated, and then you'd check, okay, is there a condition here where it needs to go off? All right, so that's kind of showing you how things can get more complicated than you originally thought they were. But I find that's kind of the fun thing in programming, is like having all this stuff that has to be happening, especially when you do a game further on in our course, and kind of figuring it all out and getting it all right. I don't know, for me it's just incredible fun, and hopefully it will be for you as well. So our alarm clock is fully complete, and that is done. Yay! All right, so make sure you're up to this point. You may want to take a break in the video because we've got some extra stuff coming. Because we've got the challenge task, and the challenge task is going to be fun as well. So we made a talking alarm clock. What if you just want to make an alarm clock which makes some kind of audio file sound effect sound like a police siren, woo, or something, to go off instead of someone talking to you? You can do that easily in VBNet. So here we've got another alarm we made, which is the WAV sound alarm. So we just had our previous project and just made some changes, changed the background color, changed what it said up the top. And we've got our old laughing emoji friend here from the jumping button as well. And we'll show you how this one works. So this one's a little bit different. So here it is over here. So, oh, we've been going 40 minutes in the video. Oh, that's been a while. Okay, so let's get this guy set. So we want it to go off at, we can hold those things down and see how they go in fast forward mode. That's kind of nice. 46, better go for 47. And ooh, we don't want to be waiting too long. Oh, 47, click into the minutes. Oh, 7 will do, and set the alarm. So the emoji isn't there. Okay, so I hope you could hear that. So we got this big WAV file there of people cheering, and then when we click set alarm, alarm is set. Hang on, that should be saying alarm is not set, and the emoji should be disappearing. Oh, there's a bug in that. It should go back to this. Status alarm is not set, and we shouldn't see the laughing emoji laughing at us. Okay, so let's just run you through that again. So the idea is we can't see the laughing emoji. Let's just set some time here for 2:48. How embarrassing. There's a problem in my program that I didn't see in testing. Oh, well, it happens to the best of us, I'm afraid. Let's just bring that there. Set alarm. Right, now you can't make the laughing emoji disappear when the alarm WAV file finishes, which is a little bit of a problem. So the idea is that when you did set alarm, it has reset that. Okay, so it does reset the message there after the alarm's gone off. And then when we go to reset the alarm, so we wanted it to go off a bit later on here, that goes back to set and the emoji disappears. Okay, so that is actually working 100% okay. I've confused myself there. The problem was that we couldn't have the noise play and then make the emoji disappear. Not easily anyway. There probably is a way of doing it, but it might involve some delaying kind of code here to wait until we've heard all of the WAV file and all of that, but this will do for now. All right, now how you get it to play a WAV file, a WAV file, and I must admit, I haven't tried this out for MP3, but it probably does work for MP3, but most sound effects that you download are WAV anyway, the ones I found. So you just have a mycomputer.audio.play and have the name of your WAV file here, and you need to copy that into your bin debug folder of the project. So if you don't remember what the bin debug folder is, we should just curse you and tell you to go and watch a previous lesson, but no, we'll be nice today. So look, here's the alarm WAV file, the main folder. So remember, you go in your main folder and you just keep clicking in the top folders all the way along till you're in bin debug. And there's the actual one which can run on its own, the standalone exe. But you need to make sure, our one is called CrowdShear WAV. We also had a couple other ones we were playing around with here too. But that's the actual one we're referring to in our program code and the one which went off. Okay, so the WAV file, the sound effect file you get, has to be in your bin debug folder. Now, there it is there. Now the laughing emoji, that's from the jumping button project, but if you get the downloads for this project, you can get it as well. And what we do is we need to make it invisible when the form first loads up so that we don't see it. And then we need to set it when the alarm goes off. Part of the alarm going off will be to set that emoji so that it's seen. And this is a fun one. I played a great joke on the missus with this one. What I did was I put my laptop near the lounge room and I had it Bluetoothed and the speakers turned up really loud and said, I've just got to plug in and get a bit more charge on my laptop. And she just sort of was watching something on TV. Goes, oh yeah. Anyway, a minute later, yeah, it's a good prank, a good little prank. I had fun anyway. And my shoulder's still hurting from where she hit me, where she punched me. So you get the downloads for this lesson. We fully go through this and explain it to you. So if you're sort of having trouble getting that set up and don't know where to get free WAV files from, it's all shown to you in the downloads. So we should actually show you those downloads, shouldn't we? All right, so where are we? What can you get in the downloads? Well, the first thing you get with the downloads is the pictures. So you'll get the emoji and you'll get the little ICO clock here to go here. Now you get a Word document of instructions. So some of our students don't want to spend their time watching a whole video. They're just happy, give me the Word doc, and they can see here all the stuff and they're just happy to read this and set it all up and make sure it's right. And then they're happy to just do these things as it says on the instructions and go, oh yeah, that's what I'm doing. Start putting the code in. So here's the code here. You can even copy and paste it out of here if you haven't got time to do the typing, and put it in and, you know, do their testing. Oh yeah, that's how that works. It's all working. And they can work through and do this project really quickly. So you get all that. But what you'll also get is that you will also get the final full code listing for the talking alarm clock, so that way if there's something wrong in your code, you can compare it with the full listing, and you'll get the challenge task. And we go through the challenge task and we show you where to get WAV files from on the internet and we show you how to set them up and make them play and that. So they'll be really useful skills, because WAV files playing could be a fun thing for when you do other projects. And the other thing you get in the downloads is, apart from the emoji picture and the ICO clock, you get the slides we did in the this video. So yeah, some people just like looking at the slides quickly too, and just going, oh yeah, I got to put that in, okay, blah blah blah, do that. They find it a much more way easier to work, because they don't want to spend the time sitting down watching a video, even on 1.5 or 1.75x. So look, there's a range of different people, and they all have different ways that they like doing things. So if you're a teacher, especially watching this video, we suggest that you get, now where am I? That you get the downloads for this lesson, because I think they're only, what are they? I think for a 30 user license or something, it's less than $4 US or $3 US, about $5 Australian for a teacher to get that for their class. So that is the way to go. Right, so as we mentioned, we got that VB game. So if you're wondering, oh, what are these previous projects had to do? As we showed you before, go to passivworldict.com/VB games, and that's it for this lesson. We hope you enjoyed it. Now, thank you so much for all the people that always give our videos a thumbs up like. So join the club and do that as well. And also join our list of subscribers. We're getting really, really close to 1,000 subscribers at the moment. So join the over 930 something people, I think it was this morning, that have subscribed and are getting good value out of Passie's World of ICT, because it's helping them with their VBNet programming, because VBNet programming is fun. And we'll see you in the next lesson.